All right, so lesson 7, the wise men come here. So we've read that from Matthew. Okay. So, first thing that we have here is the wise men see this star. Now, how many wise men were there? Joe?
3.
What's your evidence for 3 wise men?
They brought 3 gifts to him.
3 gifts. Logan?
At least 2.
Logan thinks there's at least 2. Joel thought there was 3 because there were 3 gifts. Megan?
I think there's at least 2.
Megan's correct. The Bible doesn't tell us. Okay? Most people assume because of, like Joe said, 3 gifts or 3. But that's not important. Okay? There may have been 6 and they just brought 3 gifts. Okay? May have been 2 and they brought 3 gifts. We don't know. It's not important. Now, when we sing Christmas carols, obviously, many times in there we see, and that's why embedded into our minds is this idea that there must have been 3. That's not necessarily true. Okay? The Bible doesn't tell us. Okay? So it's kind of an interesting question. Most of you answered 3. A few of you 2 or more. Very few of you, the Bible doesn't tell us. But the Bible does not tell us. Okay? But anyways, these men, they're in the east. Okay, probably over by Persia, Arabia, so in the area of maybe Iraq. And they see this star. Now these men were wise men, so they probably studied the stars and astronomy. They understood the heavens. And every night we should see approximately the same stars. Okay? Now over many months, some of those stars along the horizons will change because of the rotation of the earth and how God has created the heavens. But this was a special star. This star was a wonder. It was a miracle. And these wise men were probably superstitious in a sense, and they studied the stars just like foolish people today read their horoscopes based on when they were born or what the pattern of the stars were. Or just like in the Bible times when signs and wonders would come from the heavens, the heathens would look for. So these men were probably men who studied the stars, and maybe they could make some predictions. Okay? Because all these men are living in the land of Persia. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar had been there, and he too, we see, had all of those different beliefs that were false. But anyways, these men also may have read the scriptures. They may have read those documents that had been written down by the prophets and by Moses and many others, and they knew there would be a special star that would come. Okay? And you were asked to read there. Okay, Numbers 24. Okay? Predicted, written by Moses, a star would come. So these men maybe were looking for a star. But either way, okay, it was a special star. It was a wonder, a miracle in the sky that God had put it there. Okay? Obviously, as we said before, this is the focal point of all history. All history before this point points to Christ, and every piece of history after this looks back to Christ and realizes this is the focal point of history, Christ's birth. So the star is an announcement. It's a fulfillment of the prophecy. God sent it at just the right time. Okay? So these wise men then may have had a special revelation by God then. Okay? That may have been too. We don't know for sure. But anyways, these wise men knew that that star was a special star, and they had faith. They had faith that that star meant something. And they were right. It meant the birth of Christ. But they didn't know that. They just knew it meant something, and they studied, because when they get to Jerusalem, what do they ask about? Who do they ask about? Well, not specifically Jesus, but not necessarily Jesus. Help her out, Courtney. A king. Okay, we're looking for a king. A king is born. Now, we know it's Jesus. You're right. But they're looking for a king. Okay? And so they have some insight. They also know which city to go to. What city do these wise men go to first? Where do they go, Micah? What city do they go to?
Jerusalem.
Yeah, these wise men went to the city of Jerusalem first. So this star led them over to Israel, and it was only natural for them to go to Jerusalem because that's where they would find a king. Okay, so they went there. They go to the city of Jerusalem to search, to find out about this new King of the Jews. Never before had a special star like this we see in the heavens. And never since then. So, this is a very special star, and these wise men knew it. Now, the star must have gone away for a time. God took it back out of the heavens. Okay? And the wise men then went to that royal city. You can imagine them traveling across the desert, arriving here at Jerusalem, getting entrance into the gates, going into the city. And once they get into the city of Jerusalem, they begin to ask around for a king. The people probably in the streets direct them to the palace. But their questions left an impact on the people. A birth of a king here in Jerusalem? Why, we haven't heard this. Surely if Herod had a son who would be our next king, we would have heard. There would have been trumpets playing. So this confused the people. It set them too at wondering. But anyways, these wise men, they come and they arrive at the gates and are presented, or their question is presented before Herod. And so they ask, where is he that is born, King of the Jews? Where is this new babe? We've seen a star in the heavens. Okay? So we know something special has happened here. Okay? And so they ask for this king. Well, nobody knows what they're talking about. Maybe they think these men are drunk, or they're fools, or what have they come upon? And so there's no new babe here. There's no young child. So these wise men are disappointed. No one hears about this. What was that sign for? Did we misinterpret it? Did we misunderstand it? And the people in Jerusalem are confused because they've heard about a babe being born too who will be their king, and that hasn't come true either. So Herod hears this request, and he wants to know a little bit more. I think we know from Herod that he's a very suspicious fellow. He's always worried probably about the next person coming and knocking him off, taking over his throne. So he treats any threat with serious about this. And of course they give him an answer because they did study, they did read those old documents. They probably weren't godly, but they did read the old historical documents of the city that they were in. And of course, they read too that same text. But they also read in Micah 5 verse 2. And Micah 5 verse 2 tells us that Christ would be born where? I asked you to look that up and write that down. Where did that say he would be born? Joe? Yeah, in Bethlehem, Ephratah. Okay? And in the text we just read, those scribes quoted it. They changed it a little bit. Okay? They didn't read it correctly. But that's what it says. God says about Bethlehem, though thou be little. Okay? And so anyways, they tried to make Bethlehem seem a little bit more important. But these men knew that is where this King of the Jews, this babe, who is foretold about throughout all of the Old Testament and all those scripture texts, so that people would be looking, God's people would be looking. These scribes know. Do they truly love the Lord? No. Not in their hearts, but in their minds. They had the knowledge and understanding of what was going on. So the scribes tell this news to Herod. Well, Herod, in the Old Testament and the written down laws and the books and the stories, it is true. We read of a king, a young child being born in Bethlehem. Well, King Herod, we know, is a very jealous king. He hates anyone because we know what great atrocities he's about to do, because we just read that there. But anyways, Herod is determined to kill this possible new king, this person who could maybe take him off the throne. Very jealous. But he's very deceptive as well. How is Herod deceptive here? What does Herod do that's deceptive?
He told us to bring him more when they found him so we could worship him.
All right, Herod tells him, you know what? When you go to this place, Bethlehem, when you find the babe? Well, I would like to come and worship him too. So please, on your return visit, stop back here in Jerusalem and tell me where I can find the babe. In his mind, he knows he's going to kill the babe. So who is Herod here? I asked the person, who is he a type of already? Because he wants to kill Christ. Gary? Yes, he's a type of the Antichrist. He's trying to destroy God. So, here's a question. Why did God allow these wise men? Why did he direct them to the wrong city? Why did he direct their paths? God is in control of everything in Jerusalem. Well, for a few reasons, probably. To make some of the prophecies known to the people. Okay? To alert some of them. It's also very well a good idea. God, obviously in his infinite plan, wants Jesus to go to Egypt. Okay, so that comes true. So Herod is going to, by killing all children, be forcing him to Egypt. Okay. But anyways, it's also an announcement to these Gentiles that Christ necessarily isn't going to be a king of the world. Christ will be a king of heaven. Okay. And so Wisemen, probably, imagine, well taken care of by Herod because he wants them to bring back the good news. And they leave. And as they leave, again, what shines in the sky for them? Jen?
Star.
All right. The star shines. Once again over Bethlehem. And we can imagine the wise men rejoicing and being happy. There it is. I see it again. Quickly, let's hurry. And so they make their way to Bethlehem. When they arrive down there, of course, Christ is no longer just this teeny tiny babe that was just born, but he's probably a few months old, maybe even more than that. Okay? And so Herod doesn't know how old this babe is either. But the wise come here to Bethlehem. They come to the babe. They see him. They bring him gifts. What were those gifts, Faith?
Gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
All right, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Those three things. They worshipped him, okay, and praise and thanks. They gave him those gifts. And finally, it's time for them to go. And in their minds, they're probably going back to Jerusalem to tell Herod. But who comes to them? Who comes to them, Hannah? Yes, God comes to them. And when God arrives, when God comes to them in some type of vision or dream, he gives them the command not to return to Jerusalem, but instead go straight back to your country. Don't go to Herod. Okay? But God is king, not Herod in the whole grand scheme of this world. God is the true ruler. And so he has those wise men not go. So Herod, of course, is very perturbed. He finds out that these men haven't returned. And so he wants to know, well, maybe he seeks his wise men. How long ago did that star appear? A few months ago or many months ago? Well, he's unsure. So just to be safe, King Herod announces that in the town of Bethlehem, all the male babies, how old and younger, must be killed? Micah? All the babies who are 2 and under must be killed. Okay? 2 and under must be killed. What a terrible thing to be a mother or father there in Bethlehem and to have your children slaughtered by soldiers of Herod coming down only because he's only thinking of himself. Again, a picture of Satan, of Antichrist. You know, he's trying to destroy the line of Christ, but we know he will never be successful. And so that's why we put there, how is John 1:11 already coming true here in this lesson? And many of you had good answers there. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. These people, the Jews, King Herod, many of the people would not receive the babe Christ as their king. Not what they were looking for. They wanted an earthly king. And so we begin to see already that way. And so we know, we can see already the promise will not be only to the Jews, but also God will turn with his promise to the Gentiles. And we can be thankful for that, because as Gentiles, that means the promise is now for us. So the wise men come. I don't know their number. We see, too, in part of the story, God's control, God's handiwork. The overarching running of all of history is all in His control.